Hello. Oh my gosh. That's so crazy to see you here. Because I've been avoiding doing this for the past, I don't know, like 4 years, but it's time. It is time. So many of you, I'm just going to assume that if you're watching this first episode, that you're probably my friend. Thank you. I have been avoiding for many years now, actually doing this thing. But I knew in 2024 we were approaching the line of disobedience. So a lot of this scares me. While I love sharing my opinions and I love talking and I love commenting on political events, cultural things, faith things, it's a little bit scary. But we're here and we're going to do scary things, because if you don't ever do scary things, then how do you grow? And so, welcome to the beginning of the new iteration of All Angles with Allie. My name is Allie Spencer. This is an ironically named podcast where I do not plan on giving you all angles. I just plan on giving you mine. But I hope that this feels like you're sitting down with your sassy friend, your sassy, informative friend over coffee, because as much as I love politics, I love people more. And that's that's the main reason why I care about politics, is because I now have a revelation of just how much politics affects people. And now, as I've gotten older, it affects me more, because I am making money or wanting to make money. And then you are thinking about all the money that gets taken off your hard-earned paycheck. And what is it going to? Well, it's going to governments and political things, and they are not inherently bad, but we do live in a time where, I assume if you're watching this, that we are living in a time where so much money is essentially being stolen from us to be used for things that nobody asked for, you'll probably never use, you don't want, and that actually might violate your beliefs and your faith and the doctrine that you live by. And in a secular society, there's always going to be some measure of that, but our Canadian governments are out of control. So I hope that I can shed some light on what's happening, that in a world that is so overwhelming with the amount of information, I'm excited to share with you what's going on in the news, what scandal did Trudeau participate in now. Can't wait for justice not to happen. But if you don't know, then we definitely can't expect anything to happen. And I think we are on a really exciting precipice in Canada where so many people have woken up. It's an overused term, but it's true. So many people have woken up. They're like, I was not political before. I do not want to be political now, but I am just seeing how much politics is affecting and infecting my life and the people that I love around me, and how much my city's changed, and how much, how fewer opportunities there are, and how suffocating everything feels. But I do want to start off this new season by saying you are alive at this time in history for a reason and for a purpose. And you have been placed here in Canada or wherever you are for such a time as this. I don't mean to overuse that saying, but truly, it is not a mistake. It is not insignificant. It is not without purpose that you are born at this time in history, and you are born where you're born and to whom you're born. And I just want you to be empowered and to make sense of some of the things going on in the world. And I think that that's a special gifting and ability that God has given to me, is being able to break down some of those more complicated subjects in a way that's a little bit more digestible. And so, as I said, I really hope that this is a place where you feel like you're just listening to a pal rant a bit about things that she's passionate about, but things that affect you as well. Welcome to All Angles with Allie. Hit subscribe, leave a comment, leave a rating. All that stuff matters so much, especially as this is just going to get going. My commitment right now is to do a weekly video summarizing some of the hot, juicy news from the week. Politics is what makes policies, and policies affect people. That is from Allie Beth Stuckey. But it is a true and concise way of looking at why these subjects matter. It's not just about railing against a leader of a political party that I wouldn't naturally be attracted to voting for. At the end of the day, a lot of what my passion is very removed from partisan politics. Like, I know that I where I align more, but I am very much a little case C conservative. We are not engaging in the world, in the structures the way that they are right now. Then it's a pretty silly thing to say. It's like, oh, I'm not into politics. It's like, okay, but like 50% of your paycheck is paying for politicians and government things. So you might as well get a little bit more informed. And you don't have to become a commentator, but you should know basics of what's happening in your community and what's happening in your city and your country. And so that is the desire behind a podcast like this, to make that even easier. One of my favorite Bible verses, and I think it is a very good summary of why it is important to be engaged and to be slightly more aware of what is happening in the world around you, comes from Jeremiah 29:7, that says, "Seek the peace and prosperity for the city to where I've called you into exile, because if it prospers, you too will prosper." And I think that that's a really good reminder. If you do have that little voice or that inclination to say, oh, I'm not political, is to just think like, hey, we actually have a job as Christians, not only to pray for the peace and prosperity, knowing that it will also be a benefit to us. Ultimately, it's about taking dominion in places where we have been called to. Like, God calls us to different spheres and opportunities and people and locations and workplaces and families. Just frankly, it's naive. It's naive. And I have been, maybe I'll tell my story of like becoming more political. It's something, well, actually, I'll just tell it now. I myself have had quite an evolution of caring about politics, caring about these subjects. I've always been like pretty outspoken about the way people are treated, or the way people are told to believe certain things, or told certain things are normal. I've always been like pretty contrarian about, like, if someone was like, well, this is just the way it is. I'm like, but why? Like, you should have a better answer than that's just the way it is. My evolution with politics is not riveting, but I did know probably about 12 years ago that politics was on my life. And I did an internship at the Ontario government, and I was doing photo and video because I had a family member who was really high up in Canadian politics. And at the time, I got to kind of do this creative job, right? I'm just like following ministers and members around and their staff, and that was cool because I'm highly social. But I did not care about policies, and I didn't understand a lot of it, and I just kind of was like, people are making too big of a deal, la 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 la. And then I went to Bible college, and I originally started out in worship ministry because I loved to sing. But once I got there, I was like, I think that this politics thing is going to come up again, and I need to be equipped how to build teams and deal with people and manage people and love people well. And so I switched from worship into pastoral. And even at that time, I was like, oh, politics, like, so silly. And, whatever words I was using back then, I don't even really remember. But then I returned from my Bible college experience, did another internship at the Ontario government, was still doing photo and video, and people that I had interned with a couple of years before were like, oh, I never thought I'd see you back here. And it was just like, yeah, I can feel that God is like really softening my heart or giving me revelation of what my role could be in politics. And another opportunity came up. I was a 3-timer, and it wasn't actually until COVID that things really clicked for me, that I really saw that direct, and I think a lot of people feel this way and notice this, but really saw that direct connection between what was happening in the legislature or in Parliament and everyday lives. And I think most Canadians, like your middle of the road average Canadian, was living life not really having to be concerned about what was their MP or MPP doing, what was this political party talking about, what are they voting on in the House. And I think that COVID woke up a lot of people, even the most like complicit people, the most complacent people are still like, whoa, that was crazy. Like every day waking up to find out what daddy government is going to allow you to do. Are you allowed to breathe today? Are you allowed to hug your mother? And never forget that there were many months when you were not allowed to hug your mother. And I'll get into that another time. I would love to do just one big video where we just recap COVID, because I think too many people are forgetting. If you forget, you're bound to repeat it. As I said, I have always been pretty very curious and questioning, and didn't ever like settling for the general answer. And I think that served me well the last 3 years. It was hard, but it has awoken me. It's connected me to new people. And it's also led to a lot of conversations with perhaps yourself or people like you, just saying, I don't know where to get this information. I feel like I don't know anybody else who sees the world this way. I don't know anybody else who, sees how harmful these things that we're being told are like normal and good. And if you don't agree with them, then you're a bigot, or you're like a horrible person. You're a danger to society. You're not. Truth is going to save people's lives. And it is never loving to lie to people. And it is never loving to let people believe that they are a mistake. So we will get into all that. But that's just a little snapshot for this first episode of relaunching All Angles with Ali. My commitment is to do a weekly news recap, comment on what's happening in culture, and I'd also love to have interviews with people. There are actually a lot of really great things happening, but it can be hard to weed out those stories. So I hope that it's a place that's really informative about what's going on in the Canadian landscape, but then also just celebrating and recognizing like the goodness, the faithfulness, the joy of the Lord. So little snapshot of what All Angles with Ali is going to be about, and it will evolve, I'm sure. So thank you so much for listening to this first one. Thank you so much for subscribing, hitting the bell, giving the 5-star ratings and reviews, and saying just, oh my gosh, this podcast is so amazing. And then people will come to it and they'll be like, what? There was just one intro video for now. All right, thanks guys, and I'll see you next week.